The cue and cushion snooker hall was a sanctuary, a dimly lit haven tucked away on a side street, where time seemed to slow to the measured clack of billiard balls. Here, under the warm glow of vintage lamps, Harold, a man who seemed perpetually at odds with the world, found a strange sort of peace. He was, to put it kindly, unremarkable. Short, balding, with a slight paunch straining against his ill-fitting polo shirt, Harold was the epitome of middle-aged anonymity. Yet, when he stepped up to a snooker table, something shifted. The awkwardness melted away, replaced by a laser-like focus, the sort of concentration you'd expect from a seasoned surgeon, not a retired accountant. Tonight, as usual, Harold was on table number 4. The green baize stretched out before him, a miniature landscape of felt and potential. The colored balls, arranged in their familiar triangle, gleamed under the lamps, each a tiny world waiting to be conquered. Harold, his glasses perched precariously on his nose, leaned over the table, his frame seemingly too small for the task, but his eyes held a spark of fiery determination. The lenses of his glasses, thick and circular, reflected the warm, amber light, transforming them into 2 miniature suns of ambition. He chalked the tip of his cue, a ritual he performed like an ancient rite, the soft scratching sound a familiar comfort in the quiet hall. He was, in his own mind, already a champion. The images flickered behind his eyes, the roar of the crowd, the weight of the trophy in his hands, the flash of cameras celebrating his victory. He'd watched countless hours of Ronnie O'Sullivan and Steve Davis, meticulously studying their stances, their strokes, their strategies. He'd even taken to mimicking their mannerisms, muttering tactical advice to himself under his breath in a low, conspiratorial tone. In reality, Harold's snooker prowess was modest. He was competent, yes, but he frequently flubbed easy shots, his concentration wavering at the crucial moment. He'd spent years perfecting his routine, honing his technique, but the elusive magic of true skill still eluded him. The other regulars, the slightly grizzled men who frequented the hall, watched Harold with a mixture of amusement and affection. They knew his dreams, his quiet passion, and tolerated his occasional outbursts of frustration with knowing smiles and nods. They were the silent audience to Harold's personal theater, the unspoken witnesses to his unwavering belief in his potential greatness. There was Big Dave, a man whose build suggested a past life as a doorman, Arthur, a retired postal worker who always wore a flat cap, and young Mikey, a student who came to practice between lectures, often offering Harold polite, if somewhat patronizing, encouragement. Tonight, they were all present, settled into their usual armchairs at the edges of the room, their presence a comforting familiarity to Harold. Harold took a deep breath, his shoulders rising and falling beneath his polo shirt. He aligned his cue, his stance low and steady, and pushed the white ball forward with practiced precision. The shot was a simple one, a straightforward pot of a red into the corner pocket. But for Harold it was more than that, it was a small victory in the battle against his own limitations. The satisfying thwack of the ball against the pocket echoed in the quiet of the room. He continued, potting another red, then a yellow, his movements deliberate, almost robotic. He was in a rhythm, a trance of concentration, oblivious to the world outside the confines of the snooker room. He muttered to himself as he considered his next shot. Right, Harold, this is it. Think like Ronnie, feel the flow. He aimed for a tricky positional shot, planning to leave the white in a perfect place for the next red. The shot went, not quite as planned, the white stopping somewhat short, leaving him with an awkward angle. Frustration, like a tide, washed over him. He clenched his jaw and took a deep breath, forcing himself to regain control. He adjusted his glasses, the gesture almost comical, like a silent plea for a miracle. "Come on, Harold, you got this, just focus the mind." He lined up the shot, but his mind was already thinking of the missed opportunity, the near-perfect position that had slipped his grasp. The white ball clipped the red, sending it rattling around the cushions, and missing the pocket. It was a clumsy, amateurish shot, and a collective sigh went up from the men in the armchairs. Harold groaned inwardly, kicking the leg of the table lightly. He knew he was his own worst enemy. His desire to be great often hindered his ability to simply play. It was in that moment of self-criticism that Mikey, the student, approached. "Tough shot, Mr. Harold," he said, his tone respectful but a little patronizing. Harold managed a weak smile. "Yeah, I should have had that one. Maybe try a different approach," Mikey suggested. "Less power, more finesse." Harold considered this, almost surprised by the simple logic. He had been so focused on emulating the power of the professionals, he had forgotten the importance of subtlety. He took the chalk, giving Mikey a brief nod of thanks. He continued to play, a little slower, a little more intentionally. He focused on each shot individually, abandoning his dreams of grandeur for the simple act of potting a ball. He still missed shots, made mistakes, but he felt a calmness he hadn't experienced before. The game became less of a battle for glory and more of a mindful meditation. As the evening wore on, Harold didn't achieve any of the heroic feats he fantasized about, yet something had shifted. He had found a different kind of focus, one rooted in the present moment. He had not become a champion, but he had, in a way, conquered a part of himself. He had learned a small but potent lesson, that true peace, even on the green baize of a snooker table, often lies not in striving for perfection but in embracing the imperfect journey. When he finally packed away his cue, the hall was quiet save for the rhythmic ticking of an old wall clock. Big Dave nodded to him from his armchair, and Harold nodded back, a genuine smile creasing his face. It was a small triumph, but it was enough. For tonight, at least, that was more than enough. He knew the journey to snooker greatness was a long one, but tonight, he felt as though he might just have cleared a hurdle, rather than just pot the occasional ball. Harold knew he'd be back tomorrow, ready to face the bays again, and, perhaps, ready to learn a little more about himself.